if I boil down, can consciousness be explained? On one side, it's some kind of chemical or electrical or neuroelectrical synapse popping off in my brain or somewhere. That's what it is. It's a physical thing
Right.
really happening in my brain
Phil Phails at philosophy.
that's, you know,
That's the physicalist argument, right?
that's the physicalist argument. It's
that
just chemicals or
just chemical,
neuroelectronic
right.
or some kind of synapses things going on that you can look at. If we had the right type of devices, we could look at it and see, oh, that's...
Yeah, you can see
we could probably plug into
the
it.
neurophysiological activity.
Yeah, we could plug into it and we could probably control
Right.
it from another place. Now, the other thing is this is metaphysics, is where, right? It's not in the brain, or if it is in the brain, it's not through the activity of the brain that it is. That's idealism, is it?
Yeah, I would say idealism is a better term than because metaphysics just means about physics, about the physical.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's idealism. It's out. It can even be out here, right? Consciousness doesn't have a location at that place, at that point.
Yeah, I mean, like if we assume that the physical world is defined by extension through space, and that this is not that, then yeah, it wouldn't have a location of extension through space. And yeah, I think that's one of the curious things about consciousness, right? Is it doesn't seem to be the kind of thing that is needing a physical location, right? When we think about what it is to be aware,
right.
It's so actually unhinged, except in this act of perception, right? Like why are they concerned with perception? Well, we have all these different kinds of mental activities.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're trying to think about what an understanding of reality would look like that's idealist, what we're saying is that reality is on its fundamental level like mental activity. It is mental activity, right? It's that's the kind of thing that makes up reality. And then if we ascribe to that, we have to have an explanation for our experience of the physical world, right? And the explanation will have to be some way in which our experience of the physical world relies on the more fundamental reality of mental experience, right? One of the things about our mental activity that we experience is there does seem to be all this mental activity that doesn't seem to need a physical location, right? Abstraction. Right?
Yeah.
We think in abstract thoughts, and the nature of abstraction is that it gains its currency and often its accuracy and reliability the more we take it away from the messiness of the physical realm, right? When we abstract into numbers, maybe they come out of the physical world, maybe they don't, maybe they're completely abstract entities. We can think of them in terms of set theory, and they don't necessarily rely on a physical reference to work then.
Mm-hmm.
So we can create mathematical abstractions. That doesn't seem to be physically necessary. And there's also transferability, right? There's a level at which if I am doing the cognitive work of arithmetic, right? I'm thinking those mental things. It doesn't matter if I'm sitting here with you or I'm sitting in Indonesia,
Right.
or I'm sitting
Doesn't require a physical location.
in a lunar pod, or I guess it wouldn't be a lunar pod on Mars, but some little pod on Mars.
Or unconscious,
right,
on a gurney,
right,
or in a coma.
Right, or sitting there in space without, like, I can still, they seem to be the kind of things that could still occur as mental activity without that.
I watched a show, this guy was telling a story of a young man who was playing football and experienced, I'm not going to tell the story in the elaborate way that the storyteller did, but a man got a concussion, lived a whole life in a series of seconds. In that life, he married the person he'd been crushing on and trying to win their affection, had kids, was living a life in the house that they wanted. He had the job, the wife had the job, and they named the kids. And he started having weird experiences in this concussed state. And when his wife in the concussed state, took him to the hospital, and then he woke up and he was being rushed to the hospital, and he said, "What's going on? Where am I? What's happening?" And the police officer said, You're playing football and you got hit really badly and you got a concussion." And he lives to this day probably mourning the loss of these children.
Right, because he has those as real memories.
Memories, real memories.
Right.